In this section, we are discussing questions or the concept about destructuring. This is about array destructuring. So I'm putting this question into array category. There will be 4 relative questions to this topic. As the name destructuring says, that something is getting destructured. It also means there is already a structure which is getting broken. When I say structure, it means the data structure. So destructuring is a concept of breaking data structure like array or object literal into data pieces, or in other words, individual variables. In this section, we are discussing array destructuring. For object literal destructuring, you can check the OJS section. Array destructuring will look something like this. Now if you observe this figure, there is an array of 4 elements. Generally, if you want to assign each element to a variable, you will write something like this, where you say a is equal to array name, in the square bracket you put 0, that is the index number, right? You go with b is equal to again array name 1, and so on. Instead of that, there is a way to destructure. If you say destructure, that means you have a specific syntax of writing it. Then all the values are automatically extracted from the array and assigned to individual variables. How? Let's try with a practical example. I'll create an array of 4 elements. Again, I'll say same values 80, 90, 93, and let's say 26. What I want is, I want to have 4 variables in which I want these values to be extracted. So I'll say let, now see this. If I write a, b, c, d is equal to assign the array to it, then this is not valid. The reason is you cannot have list of variables where you are planning to assign individual values. And you also have to explain to the JavaScript that I am destructuring the array. So what you do is you put these list of variables into square brackets. Remember, when you are looking at this, this is actually not an array. This is the syntax of destructuring. Always remember that when you see square brackets on left hand side, that's actually not array. It's actually destructuring an array. So now what will happen? Looking at this syntax, array will be destructured and individual values will be assigned to a, b, c, and d respectively. Let's try to display all variables here. I'll say a, b, c, d. I'll save this and let's run the code. Now you see that we have tried to display individual variables and they all have these different values. So that's how a destructuring array works. It might also happen that this array is returned by a function. Let's say I have a function called function test, and this returns an array. I'll just cut this array from this place and paste it here. Right? There might be some variable which will have this array, but at the moment I just say return this array. Now here I'm going to call the function. Now what does this function return? It returns an array. So now we are destructuring it. So again you run, the output is very same. So that's how you can return an array from a function which is directly destructured. So you might see that list of variables and a function, don't get confused. It is just that you must be sure that this function is returning an array and getting destructured. Sometimes it might happen that you do not want this 90 to be part of B. Let's say you want this element to be blank, right? Now this could have been here as well, or let me do that. Let me put this thing back, right? And I just uncomment and remove the function. Let me put array here. Now, in case if you do not want that this 90 should be assigned to B, then you can keep this as a blank value. So 90 will not be stored anywhere. A, C and D will have 18, 93 and 26 respectively. I forgot to remove the B. So I'll do that because there is no such thing called B. So now you see 18, 93 and 26. So you may want to avoid assignment in some case. It's possible with destructuring. There is also one tricky example which we can try, like swapping values. Let's say a is equal to 4, let b is equal to 5. So now you have two variables here. See this. I'll say a comma b is equal to b comma a, and I'll display console log a comma b. So the tricky thing here is you have a and b, two variables which you are putting as part of array, and because you have destructuring, what you do is you assign b to a directly and a to b directly. In traditional language we used to have third variable which stores the value and then you swap it. Here with destructuring you directly do it, right? So if I just say, you see a is 5 and b is 4. So with destructuring you can play with the code like this. You can also use the rest operator with destructuring. For example, the array which you have, let's say let arr is equal to, you have 4, 5 and 6. Now what you want is you assign the arr here, and in this case you'll simply say dot dot dot, that's it. And you're going to declare this with maybe a let or const keyword, that's it. So now a will become 4 and b will be an array containing two elements, that is 5 and 6. So these are various combinations you can try with destructuring. There is one more point, and that is about having a default value. Let's say this array doesn't have the second value, it just has only one value. So now if I run this, a does have 4 but b is undefined. In case if it is undefined, then you want to just have 0 in b. So here you can assign equals to 0, that's it. This is how you define the default value. This is a very common thing in ES6. You also do the same thing with functions also. So let me run this. Now you see it has 0 if there is no value. Now if I add a value here, let's say 6, and run this, then it will have 6. So this is a default value implementation you can do with destructuring as well. Now let's discuss relative questions of this topic. So what is the destructuring assignment? It is actually called as destructuring assignment or destructuring. It's about extracting the data pieces from array or object literal, but in this section we are discussing only array. So we are extracting the data pieces from array and assigning it to individual variables. That's the process we do when we say destructuring. The second question is swap values using destructuring. We have already seen this. This is the code which helps you to swap the values. So the third question is, what will be the output of this code? So here we have a, b and c, but while assigning there are only two values. One value is blank. So if there is no value, you know that JavaScript returns undefined. So b will have undefined in this case. And the fourth question is, how will you set a default value while destructuring an array? So here, let's say in this example, I just want to have a default value 0 here, which we have already seen. So now if I run, we have 0 as a default value. So this is how you assign a default value while destructuring an array.